Hello, fellow Econauts, and welcome back to our show. I'm here with my brother Ben, the Rocketman, and today we are talking about Sputnik. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, fellow Econauts. Hi, Simon. Yeah, today is our topic will be about Sputnik and its impact.
Let's jump right into our first question. What is Sputnik?
I think most people would know, but just to catch everybody up, Sputnik is a satellite which has been launched by the Soviet Union in October 1957. It has been the first artificial object in orbit. So obviously very, very important.
And what was the mission of Sputnik?
The actual mission of Sputnik was to collect data in the upper atmosphere and obviously send that information back to Earth. But also, it was a show off to the Western world how strong the Soviet Union was in the space sector. And yeah, so that I think that's safe to say that it has the dual mission as well and achieved that.
I think it's also important to talk about the global impact of Sputnik.
Absolutely. I mean, Sputnik itself was a very short mission. It stayed in orbit only for a couple months, 3 months, I think, and was then deorbited. But the impact, the waves it was causing in the Western world, they have been immense. At the time, the space race sort of started, but and America was not really shaken too much to do a lot. And with Sputnik, Eisenhower although trying to play it down, increased the budget for space, which was actually then, we had the first person in space as well, also sent by the Soviet Union, and then later on more and more rockets, and finally the Apollo mission and going to the moon. So you could say Sputnik was really the start of the space race. So that is, I guess that's safe to say that this is a huge impact on the space sector.
And I think the impact of Sputnik really showed the US, okay, we have to step up the game because, if we talk about the space race, and you mentioned it in one episode, it is basically finding the higher ground. It's basically,
Yes, absolutely. Also, Sputnik, although Sputnik itself is not in orbit anymore, led to the Vanguard 1 satellite from the United States, which was way smaller. By the way, Sputnik was the size of a water ball, how do you call them? These beach balls. And Vanguard 1 had the size of a grapefruit. However, Vanguard 1, although it has been the third or fourth artificial object in orbit in space, is still there. It's still orbiting. So Vanguard, although the fourth object in space, is now the oldest artificial satellite.
Sorry. So this is the it's still in orbit. So that's what was the name?
Yeah, Vanguard 1.
Vanguard 1 is still in orbit?
Still in orbit, yes. Still surrounding our planet. And it's currently the oldest artificial object in orbit.
In orbit, but not in space.
Yes, also in space.
Also in space. So Voyager 1 and 2 it's after.
Yeah, way after, yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted, because I was like thinking about Voyager for a moment, because you said like, yeah, it's it's in orbit, and I'm like, okay, so Voyager 1 and 2 obviously are not in orbit anymore. They are
between Sputnik. Yeah, between Sputnik and Voyager were like almost 25 years. So there's a lot of time before Voyager actually launched Voyager 1 and 2.
Which is interesting if you really think about it, because we talked about that as well. We kind of had a reset when it came to the space race or the interest in space. And with Elon Musk and SpaceX joining the stage, we saw an increase again, right?
Yes.
Which is about 20 years, if you really think about it, right?
The huge difference was the motivation. The motivation for the space race in the last century was obviously the Cold War, being more advanced. Actually started already before that in the Second World War. Nazi Germany obviously wanted to send the first object to space, but luckily didn't get to that point. But then the Cold War replaced that conflict, and that was more or less the motivation for the space race back then. But then with the advent of SpaceX, and slightly before as well, but not as strong on the stage, Now the interest for the space race nowadays is a commercial factor, and that's why I also think it's a more sustainable motivation, because it doesn't rely on a conflict between countries.
It's very similar to communication systems that also started out to be like more like a military necessity and then became, like our everyday kind of platform where we communicate.
But as I said, in the moment, I think economically is the bigger driver for the space sector, for the space economy, and that's why Starlink, for example, is an extreme good example. Starlink will make internet connections on Earth as not completely redundant, because if something fails, you still want to have some redundancy with cables, but in countries like Australia, where putting some cable into the ground is extremely expensive compared to the impact, because with 1 kilometer cable you might reach a handful of households in the wrong areas, whereas when you put that in Europe, you end up with thousands of households. Starlink doesn't care, because you put it up there and you just cover areas, and therefore you need to put them up there anyway, and you cover huge amounts of areas with a shorter or smaller investment. So my point is, the commercial aspect is way more important now, because now people have access to the internet. The internet is actually a big driver for the current space industry as well.
I think that this is a very good moment to end this episode. I hope that you had the opportunity to learn a little bit about Sputnik and the impact of that fantastic satellite. I wish you well, and if you like that episode, please don't forget to leave a like and
And
subscribe.
don't forget, sorry, no, don't forget to hit the notification bell.
and subscribe if you haven't already. So
Yes,
okay.
yes. And we have also lots of episodes already available. So just go through the list and watch what you are interested in.
Yes. All right. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.